Life group leaders. We are on week 7. It's the story it's a very intriguing story in the Old Testament this week about Jacob and his encounters with God, and have some interesting things in regard to these stories that we need to look at this week. But I just want to say once again how much I appreciate you continuing to lead these groups, and I hope that you are continuing to invest in people in your groups. And so I don't really have many preliminaries to go over this week like I have in weeks past, so this may be a shorter video. But I just want to get right into the lesson and talk about a few things. Number one, Jacob's dream that he has. Of course, we know that Jacob is one that is kind of manipulative. He's kind of deceiving. There was sibling rivalry between him and his brother Esau, and with no help from his mother, who decided that she was going to help him cheat his brother out of his blessing. And so, at any rate, we also know that Esau was like many people who would trade something lasting for something temporal. He traded his birthright for a pot of stew, or for a bowl of stew. And so how many times do we trade what is eternal, or even the eternal blessings, those kind of things, for what's happening right now? And I'm not talking about in a salvific way, but just in regard to, God has his promises and for eternal blessing, and yet so many times we don't want to wait for what he has for us, but we want what we want right now. And so Jacob has cheated his brother, and as a result, his brother is furious with him, and he decides to flee to his mother's relatives, and where he will eventually find a wife. But in this, whenever Jacob has a dream, is one thing I want to go over with you, because I think this is extremely important. Here in chapter 28, and Jacob has this dream, and in it he sees the heavens open up, and there's a ladder that is set up on the earth, and its top reaches into heaven. And behold, it says the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. And the land on which you lie I will give to you and your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. So there is a continuation of the covenant that was given to Abraham and to Isaac, and now it has passed on to Jacob. And this passage is so important because it not only because it is through the line of Jacob that all the earth will be blessed, but then if you come over to the Gospel of John. Now, this is not brought out in the lesson, but I think it's important for us to connect these dots for people. And it may do that in the story through the New Testament. It may look back at this passage as well. And so, if you look at the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 50, Jesus is talking to Nathanael, where he calls Nathanael to be his disciple. And he has told him that he has seen him under the fig tree even before they arrived. And Nathanael's response was, Rabbi, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel. To which Jesus responds here in verse 50, Jesus answered him, Because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these. And he said to him, Truly, truly, I say to you, you will see heaven opened, and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. This is shown to be a fulfillment, that Jesus is the fulfillment of that Abrahamic covenant, that all the nations of the earth would be blessed through Jesus. He is the one that would bring about God's blessing. The kingdom of God was there upon him. And so you can see even how in the Old Testament God is lining things up in such a way that it would bring about the promised Messiah that he prophesied even back in Genesis 3:15, whenever he said that he would crush the head of the serpent. And so I think it's important for us to point that out to people, that they see those things. The questions, I believe, are pretty good this week. It does talk about the nature of God. What does God's willingness to meet Jacob in his distress tell us about God's nature? And so that's an important question, that he is a God of love and mercy. He's a God of grace. He is one that meets us where we are. Aspect of the story that we need to look at is, of course, whenever Jacob goes to meet Esau, and he is terrified because Esau has promised to kill him, because he cheated him out of his birthright, he cheated him out of his blessing, and so now Jacob is returning to his land, and he encounters Esau. And before that encounter, he sent everybody on ahead of him, and that night he met a man that he began to wrestle with. And again, this is a theophany. Some people think it's a pre-incarnate Jesus before he was born of the Virgin Mary. But at any rate, it does indicate, even in this passage, that he had wrestled with God. Now, what is the significance of this wrestling with God? I think there's much significance, because whenever Jacob left the first time, he left a very prideful man. And you can see, as he has wrestled with God, and it says in one part here that he has prevailed, or he has overcome. Now, I don't want people to think that means that he bested God in a wrestling match. It means that he has seen God face to face, and he is overcome by the grace of God. Because what has happened here is Jacob has been changed from a person that was very prideful and all about himself to one of humility. And in fact, Jacob said, I won't let you go until you bless me. And at that point, God changed who he was. He touched him on the hip, and Jacob walked with a limp ever after that, and he changed his name. And so there was a complete transformation from Jacob, the one who is the cheater, to Jacob, one who is blessed by God, who is humble, who now even walks in a different way than he used to walk, because he had this encounter with God. And so I think that's some of the important things that you see this week in this story. And again, I just want to reiterate, connecting this back to how this was part of God's plan to bring about the redemption of mankind through Jesus Christ. He continues to confirm the covenant with his people, first with Abraham, then with Isaac, and now with Jacob. He has confirmed that, and God will do what he's promised to do. And he will do whatever is necessary to make sure that promise is fulfilled. So that's basically what I've got for you this week in this. And I know maybe some of you didn't meet last week. Maybe some of you aren't going to meet this coming week due to spring break, and that's okay. But I hope you just continue to invest in people, lead them through these stories in the Old Testament, and help them to see that they are more than just stories. They are the account of how God has worked in history to bring about his redemptive purposes for mankind. And so I hope you have a great life group this week. And if you have any questions, give me a call. Thanks.